Great to see you.
Hugh Jackman is Wolverine, but that's not all he is.
Did you imagine or fantasize that this is where you would end up?
I never thought it was really going to happen. I think that kind of story feels very like, okay, you can't make this one up.
Tell me about when you get that first call to play this character, Wolverine. I mean, do you know who he is? Do you know anything about the character?
Knew nothing. I didn't even know a Wolverine was a real thing. And I remember going to an IMAX, watching a documentary on wolves, thinking Wolverine was like a wolf, part wolf. Some of the stuff that I kept, actually. Wolves are driven by their sense of smell, which is why they're always looking down, why you see all these pictures of them, and they're always looking at your camera now. But right. So I used to think, oh, like a wolf, I always need to be seeing my eyebrow. The director said, "You're doing something with your body. What's that?" And I said, "Hey, that's cool. I've been looking at wolves." And he goes, "Why?" I said, "Well, you know, Wolverine. It's like there's something in the mythology." And he goes, "No, it's a Wolverine." I said, "Well, there's no such thing." And he goes, "Yeah, like go to the zoo." Like that's how little I knew. I'm at the National Theatre at the time, and my wife is reading the scene with me. Right. And I remember her saying, Wolverine senses danger, his nostrils flare, and snicked. She goes, "What?" And she goes, S-N-I-K-T, snicked. Claws come out of his hands, and she looks at, she goes, "But you can't be doing this. What, you got claws coming out of your hand?" Like, all I have is 3 pages. I don't have the script. I'm like, look, it's Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart and Anna Paquin. I'm going to go for it anyway. She goes, "Well, you're on your own, babe." So when I went for the audition, it's the only time ever my wife has been wrong, by the way, in 25 years of marriage.
So now here you are, you've got this part as Wolverine. And clearly as an actor, I'm sure you're pulling from a number of different sources, but what do you pull from yourself? What part of yourself do you feel is in Logan? And clearly you are not Logan, right?
It is in me, actually. On the surface, you don't see that at all. But if I look back at who I am, and every time my back's against the wall, I get filled with rage. So when I'm younger, it was a blind rage. I would have a trigger.
Really?
In that way, there is part of me I know that can lose it. I know that. I can feel it. I am not the brooding, dark, get out of my face, I'll do anything I want. Part of me wants to be that. I'm a complete people pleaser compared to Wolverine.
Right.
But on some deep level, I get it. Probably wish I was a little more like that.
Yeah.
And that's a good combination to have. I also always approach Wolverine knowing that I could never know everything about the character that you know. I approached him with the seriousness and the intellectual curiosity as if I was playing Richard III. I always thought it was very sort of Greek tragedy, like classical theatre. So he represents in all of us this fight between chaos and control.
Yeah.
The animal and the human.
So you played this character for a really long time, and you walked away sort of on your own terms. You said, enough, time to hang up the claws.
I had this feeling underneath that I hadn't achieved all I wanted to do with the character, that I hadn't done the character justice. I felt there was just more gravitas, more complexity. And so I thought, this is it. I need to put all in. I need to take out the safety net of, I'll have another go. I'm going to take that out. I'm just going to go for it. I told everybody this is the last one. We didn't know what the story would be. I'm more interested in what it's like after the fight, and him finding it almost impossible to live with himself. Just that feeling that you've done something that you may never get over.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure what it is, but I just have this feeling that I'm a bad egg. I'm actually not a redeemable character. I always really keyed into that.
That's a very interesting take. I've never quite heard that. That's great. Could you show me how to grunt and yell like Wolverine, like properly?
You up for it?
Yeah.
So before I do any Wolverine, I do 5 squat jumps, really as high as you can.
Okay. So
So you got your breath going, and then you have to run. So you're running. You're running. Run. Come on.
Come on! Come on! You're fighting me like, right? And I'm gonna start yelling.
I look back now and think, oh, right, yeah.
Doesn't just happen.
Absolutely. Find the thing you love to do.
Yeah,
And then work your ass off.
your ass. Yeah.
Every story ultimately reaches its end. Wolverine's story isn't over, not by a long shot.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This is going to be my new Marvel Wolverine video. They just dropped a new Marvel Phase 4 series that they're doing. The first episode just focused on Marvel's Wolverine with Hugh Jackman. There's a bunch of Easter eggs. There were also a bunch of crazy Wolverine and X-Men stories that just got published in the last couple of days about his time as Wolverine, the history of Wolverine. I know you're all wondering what's going on with Wolverine and mutants during Marvel Phase 4, so we'll break it all down. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. We're doing an Amazon giveaway. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and let me know where you want to see Wolverine pop up in the MCU for the first time. Remember, there's the idea of them recasting Wolverine during Marvel Phase 5 and him showing up in other people's movies. Then you have the idea of Wolverine solo movies. But if you didn't see this earlier, Marvel posted this during Comic-Con as part of this big Marvel Phase 4 rollout. There was actually some genuine Marvel stuff at Comic-Con this year, even though there was no big Hall H panel and Marvel Studios didn't drop any of the big movie trailers. That's going to be happening later this year. But there's a much longer version of this where he goes into much more of his own personal history building up to becoming Wolverine and a little bit more of his time as Wolverine. I tried to just include the best stuff in this, but like he says, he wanted his Wolverine to be the Greek tragedy version of Wolverine, the character that thinks that he's irredeemable on some fundamental level, and all the quips and attitude, the tough guy persona, is just an act to hide that. Then you have all his teammates, his friends, his X-Men, his loved ones. You have people like X-23 in the Logan movie that all keep trying to desperately tell him that he is a redeemable character. And eventually, through his actions, he does wind up redeeming himself by the end. I also love that hilarious story of when he first became Wolverine and was cast for that X-Men 2000 film and had absolutely no idea who the character was from the comics and didn't even know that Wolverines were real animals. It just goes to show you how far he's come. I've also done a couple other Wolverine videos this past year because lately Hugh Jackman has actually been doing a bunch of Wolverine-related stuff. He just did that funny reunion video with Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool and the rest of the older X-Men cast. But during some of those videos, I've talked a little bit about Kevin Feige's own connection to Wolverine and the original X-Men films because that's how he got his start in Hollywood. With Marvel Studios. He got to start producing on the Bryan Singer X-Men movies. He was also a producer on the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies. But recently, the other really crazy story that Hollywood Reporter just published that's sort of connected to this is this bonkers Bryan Singer story about the stuff that he used to do on the original X-Men movies. And through it all, apparently one of Kevin Feige's jobs was to just mitigate Bryan Singer and try and rein him in every day to make sure that the movie filming didn't get off schedule or over budget. This is all when he was still relatively low level. Kevin Feige has told stories about this era. There was a certain point where they actually flat out banned comic books on the set of those original X-Men movies because the studio and Bryan Singer were just deathly afraid that people would perceive the comic booky stuff like the full comic book costumes and everything as being too silly. So if you wondered why everything looks so drab, why they wear those black costumes, why there's so many jokes about yellow spandex during those movies, that's why. There was even one point during the filming of the original X-Men movie, because as Hugh Jackman says, he knew nothing of the character, he still doesn't know a lot about the comic book version of Wolverine, that Kevin Feige actually had to smuggle him and some of the other actors' comic books on set for reference, so they just had something to go off of, because not a lot of the actors were big comic book readers. So post all the memes about Kevin Feige being a ninja on the sets of movies, smuggling comic books around. But I know you have a lot of questions about what's going on with Wolverine, Weapon X during Marvel Phase 4, mutants. The Weapons Plus program is the next big path to the Wolverine character in Weapon X, and we're going to see a lot of that happen during Falcon and Winter Soldier. Part of the story of that series is going to be someone, mystery person, bringing back the Weapons Plus program. I think that mystery person is going to wind up being Thunderbolt Ross, but he'll bring that program back from Incredible Hulk, and that'll be the path to eventually getting to Weapon X, and that's where Wolverine comes from in the MCU. Kevin Feige has even told stories about the early Marvel Phase 1 movies, how he tried to work in X-Men cameos, Wolverine, Hugh Jackman cameos, but it just didn't work out. So it'll be fun to see how they fold in some of those new recasted versions of characters to the MCU. There've been a lot of rumors about Storm in Black Panther 2, and then obviously the full-blown Marvel X-Men reboot movies won't be happening till deep in Marvel Phase 5. So everyone just post all your theories in the comments below. Where do you want to see the new version of Wolverine show up in the MCU first? And speaking of sneaky, I just did that Deadpool 3 Ryan Reynolds video. He just posted a new Deadpool 3 teaser. You can click here to watch that. And you can click here for that funny video of the Wolverine Deadpool X-Men reunion. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay safe. I'll see you guys tonight.